Hey, this is Mark Sparks from the Variety Podcast. Be sure to listen because I guarantee it'll be the best variety podcast that John has ever done interviewing a booking agent. Guaranteed.
Welcome to The Variety Artist, providing aspiring artists and entertainers with in-depth discussions from top performers from all over the world. So get ready to book some gigs, make some money, and have some fun with your host, John Abrams.
He's vice president and manager of Triangle Talent's Midwest office, a recognized expert in booking fairs and festivals and much more. He's great at it because he's been an act, a stagehand, a live and studio audio tech, a promoter, a producer, and a booking agent. Variety artist, I give you Mark Sparks.
Hey!
How's it going, Mark?
Oh, it's going great. I mean, I have plenty of free time right now, so I'm glad you called to do this interview.
Yeah. I think all of us have a little bit of free time. Actually, I don't have free time. I think I've been working harder trying to get things going in these last couple months than I had when I was doing tons of shows.
Well, I found out the last few months that cancellation is as difficult as booking. They just started pouring in, as we all know. We all experienced March, April, and ongoing. Right at first, you go, oh, okay, all right, and then you get that one where it just brings you down for the day. It's been a real test of just personal attitude and realizing that there are opportunities out there still.
The other day, I got a cancellation from a show that I had never booked. I'd like to cancel whatever the date was, October 27th. And I thought, I looked on my calendar and I looked on my computer. And
yeah. Oh my God, I missed something.
Yeah, I'm glad you canceled because I wouldn't have shown up.
Yeah, it's a lot better than the phone call that evening. John.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Are you stuck in traffic or?
Oh, that is the worst feeling. I think I've had that twice in my whole career.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, let's start with your name, Mark Sparks. Is that your real name?
Yep.
Is it really?
Yep. Mark Allen Sparks. Yeah. Well, what can I say? When I was delivered, my mom was on drugs, so. Yeah, it's paid off many times over because, when everybody's trying to think of a stage name, I didn't even have to worry about that. It was already there.
You're like, I was born with a stage name. What are you talking about?
I had to go into show business. I had no choice.
Yeah. It's like, yes, I'm an accountant named Mark Sparks.
Sure you are.
Yeah. So what did you do? What kind of act or acts did you do before you were a booking agent and all these other things?
Like a lot of us, I started as a kid. I mean, I was in show business, I think, from birth because my dad was a guitar player. He played in bands around the Springfield, Missouri area when he was in high school. Mm-hmm. Exposure to that early on. Started taking acting lessons and, I sang in the church choir and things like that. And then at 7 years old, it just all went to hell when I got a magic set.
Ah, the old magic set.
Yeah. The Adams Hocus Pocus set, if we all are familiar with that one, the coin catcher and cups and balls and nest of boxes and all that good stuff. You drive the family and your friends crazy. And I think that's how we all end up doing our first shows because, your parents go, okay, that's enough here. Why don't you go someplace else and do that crap? Please just leave. Just go.
That's right. I think my kids are grown now, but I think they were sick of it when they were littler. It's like,
guaranteed. Yeah. My kid, he's just like, whatever.
Yeah. The first couple of times they're like, wow, that's amazing. Then after a while, they're like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my wife almost didn't become my wife because when we first met, every time she'd drop something, I'd go to hand it to her and it'd be gone. And she would know exactly what I was doing and still fall for it and just get so mad.
And you're like, hey, here it is behind your ear. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Now that you're doing the booking thing, do you miss performing?
Well, no, I get asked that. That's the number one question, especially performers will ask me. The answer is not really because, I spent most of all of my adult life up until about 8 years ago, still doing shows. I just got to a point where I realized I really needed to take a break for myself because I felt I was kind of on autopilot.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get away from that for a while. I still perform because just like you and I talking, this is performing.
Yeah.
I talk with clients all the time. That's a form of performing and entertainment. Video conferences with fair people. I'm kind of look to for the comic relief part of it, you know?
Yeah.
So I've never really quit performing. I've just changed what I'm performing, how I'm performing.
I know now Zoom is the thing, you're video
Mhm.
conferencing everybody
Mhm.
because there are no live in person. Were you doing that before this whole COVID-19 thing?
Conference calls, yes, but not the Zoom conference, the video conference stuff. Large groups like this, no,
Hmm.
no. It'd be like half a dozen people tops. You know, like we'd be talking with a fair manager and production staff and things like that. You know, just trying to organize things. But this has been like a lot of people. We've all suddenly become video conference experts,
Yeah.
or should be. And people, if you're doing video conferences, get the camera up. All right. I don't want to look at your nose hairs, please. That's my best advice.
Or the top of your head.
Yeah. 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 And ask somebody how you sound, because nothing worse than someone you can't understand.
That's right. I mean, sound is more important, I think, even than video, because if you
Mhm.
can hear somebody, you can understand what they're saying. If you can't understand what they're saying, but you can see them, it doesn't matter.
Right. Right. It's distracting. Sound is one of those things that is totally invisible. Done right, it should be invisible, and done poorly, everybody notices.
Right. Exactly. Like a boxing referee.
Yeah.
He's out of the way all the time. You never notice until he messes up. Then you're like,
Right.
hey.
Right.
You talk about fairs and festivals. Is that your specialty?
That's the main focus. Yes. That's been the case for a long time, even before Triangle. I was doing all the same kind of shows everybody does growing up when you're a young performer, you know, birthday parties. And I did a lot of table hopping at restaurants, which is still one of my favorite things to do. It's just hard to make a really good living at it. I can think of some people that have done very well with it, but you've got to find the right restaurant and everything. I did that to get other shows.
That's why most people do restaurants.
Exactly. It's a great marketing tool, and it keeps your chops up. Growing up, I had done some circus work as an assistant to Dayip Liu, who was a really great magician out of Chicago who did all kinds of things. Worked a couple summers for him doing circus tours. I've done puppet shows, TV, commercials, just, basically I didn't know how to say no. So, and that was to my benefit in the long run, because it just kind of got me ready for where I am right now. For me, just being in show business is really the important thing. That's my passion. Whether it's on stage, behind a curtain doing a puppet show, I was pretty much game for anything.
When this whole COVID-19 thing hit and all of my shows canceled, I didn't say to myself, gee, I wonder if I can do construction. At Walmart. I've been trying to figure out, different ways of performing to make a living.
Right. How's that going?
It's going good. I'm teaching magic right now. I'm teaching magic to kids.
Great.
Through the Discover Magic program. And it's working out great. I'm loving doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm getting a bunch of students and so far so good.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, this is the time, if there's anything you were thinking about dabbling in or experimenting with, this is the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I play music too. And I started out playing drums when I was in school, in the school orchestra, and had guitar lessons, but I never really got onto the guitar. So guess what I started doing back in the spring? I started really focusing in on working on the guitar, and I don't know if I'll do anything with it, but I'm enjoying it. And let's face it, you can sit at home and feel sorry for yourself, or you can sit at home and be productive.
Yeah.
And do something and learn something.
Who are some of the people you represent?
The first one that comes to mind is someone you've interviewed a couple of times, and it's my longtime friend, Steve Trash.
By the way, amazing interview. I've interviewed him one time. He has an amazing interview. He just recently had a book come out.
Yep.
That he had written that I'm in the middle of reading. It's called Finding Your Light Bulb, I think. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. Terrific. Listen to that interview. Read that book. It's wonderful. Now, who else?
Let's see. I work with, I have different kinds of relationships with acts. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't quite understand about an agent. There's all kinds of ways of doing this. Of course, I come into the business as an act originally, so I'm a little bit different. I don't believe in signed exclusives. So I don't have this big roster of acts that have to rely 100% on me, because in this day and age, especially at this level, of show business, it's very hard to depend upon one person other than yourself.
Yeah.
For Steve, I'm his fair agent. He has a performing arts agent, and then the schools, he does mostly himself. I'm a specialist. So when I'm rattling off some of these acts, some of them I just represent them for fairs, and some of them are exclusive. But Rocket the Robot is my longest running act I've worked with for 16, 17 years now. Mm-hmm. And he's a 9.5 foot tall animatronic body puppet robot.
Nice.
Works all over the country. Has been the mascot for the Consumer Electronics Show. It's a little tiny trade show in Las Vegas that gets 300,000 people at it every year.
Just a little tiny.
Yeah, a little thing. He was the mascot with them for several years. What was Matt's Family Jam is now called Renata. Matt's Family Jam was originally a roving act for fairs. It was a family band, mom, dad, 3 kids. They had a roving stage that was pulled by a golf cart so they could do parades and things like that and play live music. And as the kids have gotten older, they now have formed a trio called Renata. They live in Nashville. That's the only music act I really work with on a regular basis. They're exclusive with me. Ron Diamond, who's a magician and hypnotist and mentalist, he's one of the top in the fair business. He was the first hypnotist to legally perform in the state of Kansas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we can talk about that in a minute because that's one of those weird stories of show business. And then other acts I work with, some folks that the podcast listeners might know, Chipper Lowell.
Oh, yeah, I know Chipper.
Yeah, Chipper. He and I have talked back and forth for years and it just never worked out. And so I kind of forgot about it and moved along. And then a few years ago, I was looking at his stuff again. I'm going, man, this guy's really funny. And I thought,
yep.
Well, but he does theaters and big stuff. He's not going to want to do fairs. So I went ahead and reached out to him. And I said, so, these are outdoor events. I was, trying to explain to him. And he stops me and goes, Mark, you do realize I grew up in the circus.
Yeah,
he
did.
Oh, never mind. Yeah. And he's great. He knows how to adapt wherever he is. Let's see. Groovy guy who's a juggler and variety artist, very funny man. One animal act that stands out I've been working with for a long time is the Pork Chop Review, which was just on America's Got Talent this week.
Oh.
They made it through 3 rounds. We were laughing. It's like, what if you do win? You get the $1 million and the headline spot in Las Vegas is a pig act. I love it. But stranger things have happened in show business.
I think nowadays you go to Vegas and the main things you see are AGT people in Vegas. It seems like, 25, 50% of them are AGT people.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Well, real quick, before I go on to my next question, what's the deal with the hypnotist that did the first legal show in what state was that?
Oh, yeah. Okay. In Kansas. So when I started with Triangle, I really wasn't that familiar with a lot of things in the business. I knew my clients. I had never been to a fair convention, to the IAFE show, for example, which is the International Association of Fairs and Expositions, and they have an annual trade show right after Thanksgiving every year, and all the fairs come to it, and they have a big trade show with lots of acts. And the first time I went, I was walking around and checking things out, and I realized how many similar acts there were out there. And in fact, a year or two after that, we did a count, and there was 27 hypnotists.
Oh,
27. You have to stand out, and that's the case with everything. There's lots of magicians, lots of jugglers, lots of clowns and balloon twisters and stilt walkers, and you've got to figure out how to make it different. Well, I was working with another hypnotist early on with Triangle. The manager for the Oregon State Fair contacted us and said, hey, we would like to book him, but it's illegal.
Oh,
I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it's illegal to do hypnosis as stage entertainment in Oregon. And so we looked into it, and it was one of these laws that was put on the books back at the turn of the 1900s, maybe before that. No one really knew the history of it. It was just there.
Yeah.
So we helped, compose a letter, and it was really funny. Every single legislator that they talked to, including the governor, said, it's what? It's illegal. Why? We don't know.
Yeah.
You know? So they turned that over. And then a few years later, Kansas was the last state in the country with any kind of a law forbidding hypnosis
Huh.
as a live stage entertainment. And there was actually a county sheriff in Kansas that had arrested a hypnotist at a comedy club
Oh no.
within that year when they contacted me. So I looked into it, and the law stated that the penalty was $50.
Hmm.
I thought, well, shoot, we'll make it. Well, I proposed to the fair manager at the time. I said, well, why don't we make a big deal out of it? And Ron goes in every day and pays us $50, and we make a big press deal out of it.
Yeah.
But when we dug into it a little bit more, it's $50 for the performer, the person who hired him, and everybody associated with the show, including every audience member.
Oh.
So that got a little expensive. So we went the other route. It wasn't hard to turn around, but we got worldwide press. We were getting, literally worldwide press. It was amazing the places that picked the story up.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think it's mostly because no one could believe it was illegal.
Well, it's so insane. I can just picture the guy in jail. What are you in for? Murder? What are you in for?
Hypnosis.
Yeah, hypnosis.
My theory is that some judge or legislator someplace, some city father, his daughter ran off with a hypnotist, and that took care of it.
No, that's a great idea. What a great promotional tool.
Oh yeah, it was huge, and we got lots of other dates out of it. I had just started working with Ron maybe a year before. It really established him in that next level, of the business.
Yeah,
it's amazing what those kind of opportunities can provide for you.
it is funny. Yeah, you turn lemons into lemonade, as I think is the old expression, something like that.
Oh, I think we turned it into a margarita. Frankly, it was good. It was really good.
I'm sure. All right, now before this whole COVID-19 thing happened, walk us through kind of the booking process when someone calls you and says, "Hey, I need this." How does that go about? How does that come about?
Well, in the fair industry, there's a definite booking cycle. With corporate events, as you know, and a lot of us know, corporate events a lot of times are pretty short notice bookings. Month, 2 months, maybe 6 months at the most, but it's rare you get a year out. With the fairs, so let's say the fair happens this week. At the end of the fair, a lot of times they're going to know the people they want to bring back. So at that point, a lot of them are going to have some ideas that they want to plug in for next year. Maybe they're going to have a theme, and they've been looking at an act or two that fit that theme. So they'll start shopping right after the fair a lot of times. But they really focus in at the convention.
Oh,
Even if they've been talking to somebody prior to that, it's the tradition, the process, just to make sure that there's not something better when they get there. So there's lots of deals we might close at the convention, but they started long before that.
okay.
Trade shows are all just part of the process. They're not a standalone make or break event. If you treat them that way, you won't be very happy. You got to put several years into it to establish yourself. But back on the question, most of the time it's a booking 1 or 2 acts, and they usually want somebody for the whole run. So if it's a 10-day fair, they're going to want them for 10 days. Sometimes a longer fair will split it in half, but typically it's a good booking. And I'm going to be throwing lots of little bits and tidbits in throughout this because it's hard to just talk about things isolated. So what they're looking for, they want to know what the act needs from the fair, from the buyer, and what everybody's bringing to the table. If you have a printed piece of material, the best thing you can do is to put in how much space you need, your power requirements. Do you need camping, hotel, all those details. Because even if you have a great act, let's say you have a self-contained act with your own stage, if they don't have the space to put the stage, they're not going to hire you.
Gotcha.
You have to be prepared for those questions. So if you already have it in print and they can look at it, then that's really helpful. And then of course, lots of references. They're always, because the fair business, everybody knows each other. And if they don't know each other, there's only 1 degree of separation. I've done corporates and casino work and all sorts of things, but the fair business is the only one where there's so much communication. They're looking for the people that they know have a good reputation.
Right.
They go through that. They look at all those things. You negotiate your deal. You do your contract. A lot of times you have to use their contract if they're a state or county agency. They're forbidden from using other contracts. Now, sometimes they'll just take your contract, staple onto theirs, and you're good to go. Nowadays, a lot of fairs will have their own writers with their own requirements for insurance and things like that. But it's a pretty straightforward process. It's not much different than booking a birthday party, really.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more detail. In fact, it's, one of the reasons I got into fairs was because I realized that it was as easy as booking a birthday party.
It's like a birthday party with technical requirements.
Yes. And a lot bigger paycheck.
I imagine. I hope so.
At the end of it, if you did well, they're going to want you back. You don't do a lot of repeats on birthday parties. There's some, but for the most part, you do them and that's it.
Yeah. Or it's a year later or 2 years later.
Yeah. Or you'll get some shows out of it. And that's the other thing with fairs is that if you, let's say you're working at the Iowa State Fair, I'm thinking of that because it would have opened yesterday, pre-COVID. You do a fair like that. Well, lots of other fair people go to fairs. And so if you do a great job and they check in with the office and they say, oh yeah, Mark's great, he's easy to work with. It's not unusual to book something for next year during a fair this year.
You're seeing so many people, you're probably not only booking other fairs, but maybe booking corporate gigs or different gigs of different people who've seen you. Huh?
Oh, absolutely. No, it's a great market that way. But it's crucial that you understand how to be professional. You're easy to work with, all those things. There's just so much besides the show that is important in this business. And that's at all levels, no matter what market you're in.
Now, what are the different types of acts that are booked in a fair? I know, of course, there's the standard stage magician or stage juggler, but I'm seeing bands and walk around and stilts.
I'll tell you, John, it's all over the board. I've booked everything from, like you said, walk around performers of all types, stage acts, self-contained shows, animal acts, circuses, Western shows, all sorts of things, public speakers even sometimes. If it's the right speaker, stand-up comedy sometimes. It's a tough market for some things. Like stand-up is tough because it's not as intimate of a crowd sometimes. And of course you got to keep it a little bit cleaner than you do in the clubs, actually a lot cleaner. And
actually purely clean.
I don't know why they didn't like me. I only used the F word once. I mean,
I don't know why I wasn't asked back.
And that actually is a true story. That happened once. So, of course, I already knew about that because I got the phone call in the middle of the guy's show. So,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Here it is, a bunch of 7-year-olds, guys, moms and dads with their little kids around. And
it's great. I mean, it's a show for all ages. Yeah.
And then the kids walking around repeating what they heard.
No, that never happens ever. No. Yeah. So you have a wide variety of things. I mean, it's really, when you think about it, it's the only place you can go nowadays and see the variety of entertainment, let alone also be exposed to agriculture and local community things and groups. And I mean, it's really the last of and only thing of its kind, in the world. I think that for the small admission price, for less than a movie most of the times, you can go in and spend no more money if you don't want to and have a great day.
Yeah.
And just see a wide variety of things. So, yeah. And then, of course, lots of bands. There can be local bands, regional bands, national up and coming bands. And of course, in the grandstand, a lot of times you'll have people who've had hit records and get well into six figures for their paycheck that night. It's all over the board.
Yeah, those are the big draws, right? I mean,
that's the goal, at least. Yes.
Yeah. Well, now what kind of money? I know this is probably a huge, wide spectrum. But what kind of money is involved? I mean, a lot of the people listening to this are one man, one person acts.
Right.
Some of them have 2 and 3 person acts, and some of them have full bands. So
right. So it really it's a wide spectrum. Local bands, of course. The average price, it seems like around the United States, seems to be $100 a player, for a lot of local bands. That's why a solo act is always best, because you can charge more, But,
now, does that mean $100 per player per show?
Well, that just depends. I mean, it depends on how well the act or the representation understands the marketplace. Let's say I have when I was strolling, doing strolling and stage shows, something like that nowadays could be anywhere from a low end of maybe $400 or $500 a day for a 10-day fair, up to $1,000, $1,500 a day. But that $1,000 a day point is a hard one to cross over sometimes. And I'm talking about for bigger fairs, and some of the smaller fairs, like some of the small county fairs, they don't have those kind of budgets. So they're going to book more local things, and they may only book for 1 or 2 days. So it really varies a lot based upon the buyer. There are some state fairs that don't have big budgets, and there's some county fairs that have bigger budgets than a lot of state fairs. So it just really, it depends on so many variables there. Bands, some of the traveling bands that specialize in doing fairs and events, $1,500 to $3,000 or $4,000 a day is pretty standard. But those prices are not set in stone by any means. Animal acts, $1,500 to $2,000 a day is pretty average for an animal act. But to keep in mind, a lot of them, if it's a big animal act, they're traveling with a semi.
That's right.
So their gas bill just to get to the gig can be into $1,000 or more.
Do you find that fairs and festivals, they call you and say, listen, here's my budget. I need a juggler, magician, and animal act. Or is it, I need this person specifically, that person specifically?
It's all the above. I get a lot of calls for specific acts. Sometimes it's because they've seen them at convention, or they've seen them at another fair, or they've just heard about the act from somebody else, or they've been shopping on the web. Sometimes, like I have several clients, several fairs that I do the booking for. And in that case, yes, I'm given a budget. I know that I have X number of stages with X number of time slots, and we want to, give a variety of entertainment for people. So, maybe it's a stage that one stage is just music, another stage is smaller, more intimate, and we put variety acts on there. We'll have strolling acts, and how much of anything we have sometimes will just vary from year to year based on budget and theme. Maybe sponsors come along that, want something that has to do with action sports, for example. So then we'll book a BMX show or a FMX motorcycle show or something like that. There's a lot of customization that goes along with just presenting what I have. I think that's one of the keys to success is if all you do is offer a roster, they're going to think that's all you have.
Yeah.
Most agents will reach outside of their roster to fill the needs of the client. I stay in touch with a lot of acts that I may work with once or twice a year, or maybe once every 2 or 3 years. It just has to be the right fit. No matter what an act might think, no act is suitable for every occasion.
No, it's true. Because I imagine a promoter can call you, or a fair and festival person could call you and say, okay, this year's theme is bears.
Right.
So we need a bear act.
And I've got one, that's not a problem.
Yeah, but you're not going to send them the squirrel act that you have.
No. I love it when they decide on a theme before doing research ahead of time, though. That's always fun, because I've had a few themes thrown at me that were like,
How many bear acts do you have?
Well, there's only one I'll book.
There's only one that doesn't eat the audience.
Oh no, that's a bonus. That's just the bonus. That's for the last show.
It's extra for that.
Yeah. No, it's I never know what the next phone call is going to bring. The clients who've worked with me a lot, they know that I'm not going to be surprised or taken aback by the requests, because usually I'll know somebody who does it, if not several people who do something like that. The time consuming part for me, learning who's out there, because believe it or not, it still isn't to this day easy to find a lot of performers. And I know you're thinking, well, I have a Facebook page, I've got a Twitter account, I'm on Snapchat, I have a website that has all kinds of videos, I got a YouTube channel. Yeah, but how do I know about that?
Right.
With the algorithms of Google, as we all know, it isn't like the old days where just existing and working on your SEO tags and things like that. That takes a lot more than that. In fact, it takes some money, especially on social media, to really come to the forefront amongst everything else. If I need something that I don't know, like if it's an animal act, for example, I have my sources. I have my, my other animal acts I work with that I trust. I'll say, hey, I'm looking for this. Who would fit in the fair business? Who's good? Who's going to be easy to work with and all these things I'm looking for. Like a fair is out there looking for references. I do the same thing, trying to find the right fit. It gets really hard when you're talking about what I call the commodity acts, which are the ones that every community has, like magicians, jugglers, clowns, balloon twisters, stilt walkers. Sure. There's lots of them out there. And there's lots of local acts that are amazing. A lot of times like yourself, they have really got into the business side of it and understand that it's show business, with business being the bigger word. Those are the hardest acts, though, to cull through and find the real interesting, different ones.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what I would think would be difficult for you is that I know nowadays, there are a lot of great acts out there.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes those great acts aren't great at putting together websites, video, social media.
Exactly.
And vice versa too. There are some acts that are not so good, but are great at putting together video, social media, websites, and that type of thing. So sifting through those must be difficult.
I learned early on, when video first started, I was right on top of it myself. And, my first few videos for myself were terrible. They were too long. They weren't showing the right things. I was too busy showing the things that I thought were important, that I was impressed by myself for being able to do. And that's not what the buyer's looking for. They need something that in a few minutes or a few seconds, even nowadays, is going to make them think, oh, that'll look good on our stage. Oh yeah, people are going to like that. Our audience will like that. And oh, my boss will think I'm a genius for hiring this person. Yeah, it's so crucial nowadays. When computers first came out, you'd get flyers from people, and I was guilty of it too. You get a flyer and you look at it and you go, man, this guy used every font in the library on his computer. And when they call and say, hey, did you get my flyer? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I worked hard on that. I used every font in the library. Okay. Wow, really?
Congratulations.
Learning how to be a promoter and how to create good promotion tools is so crucial. The thing is, it's the easiest thing to do nowadays. When I joined Triangle 23 years ago, in my little office building here on the farm, besides a desk with a computer, I had, and of course, a multi-line phone and a fax machine. Remember the fax machine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thermal faxes, or as I call them, the vanishing contract. You open up the folder and, it's not there anymore. I had a postal station. I had video editing and reproduction facility here. I mean, it was jam-packed full of stuff.
Yeah.
And now I have a laptop.
And that's it.
That's it, and a phone. That's all you need. But the thing is, unless you know how to use those tools and use them properly, it's not going to do you much good. It's going to make you look like an amateur, even if you have a professional act.
Right. I remember when I first started, my first ads went into the Yellow Pages.
Yep.
And the parenting magazines.
So I remember when I was living in Springfield, Missouri, and I was listed in the Yellow Pages there, under entertainment, the only other listing was for a call girl service.
Did you ever get any of those calls?
That was my next part of the story. Yes, I would get those calls. Yes. Yeah. And a couple of them were, I can't even repeat here. They were just amazing.
Well, right before we got on, I was stalking your Facebook page. I admit it. Mm-hmm. I saw that one of the acts that was a video on your Facebook page, and I don't know if you had booked this or someone had just posted it, but it was a band playing a balcony show. So they were on the ground.
Yeah.
I don't know if they had rented a hotel or what the whole deal was, but there were all these people in the balconies of this high-rise hotel.
Yeah, yeah.
That was fascinating.
That was in Russia. The band, they actually rented the hotel and sold the rooms like tickets. Then they set up on the roof of probably the banquet room, the lower level, how the hotel, there'll be that lower building. So they set up on the roof of that.
Oh, okay.
Full concert setup with light, sound. The stage roof was clear, which I thought was so cool because the people up on those top floors could still see everything and everybody in the band.
Yeah.
It's a genius idea because The hotel makes money, so they're happy because all hotels right now are suffering.
Yeah.
The band's making money. The fans, most importantly, the fans are able to go have a great experience because they have a private box seat now with its own bathroom. You can bring your own food and beverage, so there's no concessions to worry about. I mean, I thought it was a genius idea. And it's not possible everywhere, but that's just showing that there's still potential out there.
Yeah, I was wondering if you've seen other. I mean, that is fascinating. I've seen drive-through entertainment.
Lots of that.
Where you stay in your car.
Yep.
I've seen that. What other things have you seen? Do you know?
Well, the drive-through thing right now is the most popular because I think it's the easiest to set up and implement as long as you have enough space. For example, we're working right now on some drive-through concerts for our clients. The show we're working with the agency that represents a lot of contemporary Christian acts. And the one we're working for right now is for King and Country. If you're familiar with them, they're a really great top contemporary Christian act. Normally their show is a really big production, lots of lights and lasers and special effects and staging and all sorts of really cool stuff. But in this day and age, of course, we have to keep it lean and mean and affordable.
Yeah.
So what they've done, instead of quoting a price, what they're doing is they put together a full touring package. It's stage, sound, lights. So they show up with everything other than power. And either we use the power that's there on the ground, which is, in the business, they call it shore power. And if that's not suitable or close by, we can bring a generator in. Then the venue is in charge of marking off the space. So it's like a 10-foot space per car with 10 feet between each space.
Okay.
They charge per car, and it's per car up to 6 people. They have a VIP section. The first couple of rows are more expensive. You get in first. They have different little benefits with that. It's kind of the model everybody's playing with.
Yeah.
And because we're still figuring it out. We're all talking about trial by fire. Everybody is experimenting, and there really is no wrong answer until you figure out it's wrong. Some of the earlier attempts at this, they were basing their business model on way too many cars. Like one was 1,000 cars. Well, it actually is really hard to find a parking lot that has enough room to socially distance 1,000 cars.
Right.
There's just things we're experimenting with, but there's a lot of fairs. They're doing drive-through fairs, like the South Carolina State Fair. They're going to do a drive-through fair for one of the weekends in October when their fair normally would have been. You drive through, and they're going to have competitive exhibits like the quilts and food and some animals and that sort of thing. And then at the end, they're going to have a little food court that you can get fair food. And that's been the most popular thing for the fairs, has been doing these fair food courts, because I hate to tell the entertainers out there who think that everybody shows up for them. The number one surveyed item that people come to the fair for is the food.
Interesting.
Yep. Because it's the one time a year when you can pretend that the calories don't count.
Oh, I wonder if you're an entertainer and you think to yourself, hey, maybe I can create an act that creates fair food at the end. The best of both worlds.
Yeah. Of course, you have to pass a health inspection too then. So
that's true. Just a thought. I don't know.
But I think the drive-through show concept is strong and possible. If you know who Nick Walinda is,
yeah,
I heard your interview with my buddy Dave Aiken. Mm-hmm. And I say buddy. We've talked on the phone, and I've never hired him, but
he's a great guy.
Yeah, and but he was talking about the Evel Knievel.
Yeah.
So Nick Walinda is the Evel Knievel of our day right now. He's the guy grabbing the media for doing crazy stuff, So, but Nick did some shows in Florida. They did a weekend drive-in show with several aerial acts. So it was, I think, about an hour show. They didn't fill up the parking lot every show, but I know some of the grosses. Very impressive. Very impressive. So the thing you're going to have to do if you're going to do drive-in shows, though, is either augment your sound, because the sound system you usually use for your normal shows is not going to be adequate for a lot of cars that are spaced out. Sure. The best investment would be to either buy or rent a FM transmitter with a strong antenna. You have to get the antenna up high.
Yeah.
That way they can tune in on their car radio.
Right.
you still need in my opinion, you still need the regular sound to give the atmosphere and that excitement.
Sure.
But yeah, there's a lot of folks trying it out. I'm sure by the end of this all, we'll be able to write a book about it. But by then, hopefully, we'll be back doing things a little bit more that we're accustomed to.
Yeah, I hope so. I know the first 2 months of this COVID-19, the first 2 months, people were just scrambling, wondering if it's going to end next week. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, people were going, "Oh, it's going to be a little while. We better start figuring some things out."
Yeah, number one phone call to this day, I still get either a text or a call from Axe. So, what do you think? What's going to happen? When we go back to normal? When can I go back to work? It's like, I don't know, man. I have no idea.
Are you hearing any rumblings of fairs opening at some point in time? I mean, nobody knows right now, but are you hearing?
Well, there have been some fairs that are still going on. Not very many. The ones that have had success in terms of their attendance has been close to normal have been a lot of the smaller county fairs in more isolated parts of the country. Mm-hmm. Delaware State Fair happened this year with social distancing. They had staggered entry times. They did, it was free until 11 a.m. to get in, and then it was half price from 11 to 4, then full price from 4 to closing. I've heard different stories. I don't really want to repeat some of the things I've heard other than I do know their attendance was down considerably.
I would think so.
What's been happening with these bigger fairs especially is they look at what they have to do to meet the restrictions and requirements of their community and their state. Most of them realize they cannot deliver the quality of product to their audience that their audience is used to and that they're proud of.
Right, with the restrictions that they have.
Absolutely. And with the extra expense, because they have to spend thousands and thousands, tens of thousands on supplies, on disinfectant wipes, on sprays, on masks, on shields, on gloves. I mean, and more staffing. And by the way, a lot of the volunteers at fairs are senior citizens, and a lot of them do not want to take the chance.
Right. Yeah, they want to stay home.
Right. So finally, here's the real thing is when it comes to money, one large state fair that I'm involved with, they did a survey, several thousand people, and including people that they know go to the fair. And they asked, if we had the fair this year and we had social distancing and did all the things, would you come to the fair? Any guess as to what the percentage was that said they would come to the fair?
Probably small. I don't know.
30%.
Wow.
I don't know, a lot of things about a lot of businesses, but I know that in the fair business, 30% is not going to cut a profit.
Well, not only that, but they're thinking, well, 30% of people are going to show up. It's going to cost us double in staff and disinfection and all the things that you mentioned. So, run the numbers. Yeah.
So this fair determined if they didn't have the fair this year, which they didn't, they were going to lose $1 million. Mm-hmm. If they did have the fair, they were going to lose at least $6 million.
Oh, okay.
So that's a pretty easy answer there.
Yeah. I would think so. Dang. Okay. Well, we're going to stop all the doom and gloom and all that.
Oh no, it's so much fun.
Yeah. Do you have a few more minutes? I know we've already been going for close to an hour here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Like what else am I going to do, John?
Yeah. What do you got to do? All right. We're going to do fact or something John just made up.
Okay.
Is it fact? Or is it something John just made up?
All right. So here's how it works. I'm going to give you a headline. You're going to tell me whether it's true or not. And if it is true, tell me a little more about it.
Okay.
Here we go. First headline. Mark suffered second-degree burns while eating fire.
That's true. That is true.
When and how and what?
20 years old, living in Kansas City. I was performing at Worlds of Fun theme park during the day and street performing at night. My show at the time was magic juggling and fire eating because fire eating is cool and all the chicks like kissing a guy that has gas on his breath. So I was out performing on the plaza with a friend of mine, Pete Nicholas, who's a juggler. And hey, Pete, if you're listening, at the end of the show, we juggled fire, passed the torches, and then the last torch I did fire eating with. And I took just a little bit too much fuel in my mouth for the volcano for the end. and a little bit dribbled down my chin onto my shirt. And when I did the volcano, after the blast was gone, I was on fire. So I drop down, I roll into a chocolate shake from McDonald's that some kid has sitting on the ground, and that put me out. Dear Ronald, thank you for saving my life.
With your chocolate shake.
I mean, the only thing that would make the story scarier is if the chocolate shake caught on fire, which, who knows. So I'm standing there in a daze, and people are just throwing money at us. I mean, a lady walks up to me, hands me $20 and says, "Don't do that again for more money." I was like, I didn't do it the first time, but thank you.
That was amazing.
Yeah. I end up in the hospital. I'm laying there, now they got me drugged up and they got, all kinds of cool packs on the burns and everything. Pete walks in and he says, "Well, I'm glad to see you're okay, but we made a lot of money on that show." and so he pulls all the money out of the hat that we had made. And then I reach my pockets and there's paper. Ooh. And I pull out the paper and I got even more money than he did in my pockets,
Wow.
So, I couldn't, perform outdoors for a while. So I got a job working at a magic shop in Kansas City. And the first day I'm working at the magic shop, I still had the scars and everything, a little bit of the burn was still visible on my neck. This lady walks in and she says, "Oh my, what happened to your face?" I said, "Oh, well, I told her the brief version of the story." And she said, hold on. And she goes, "Jimmy, come here." And this little kid walks up, about 8, 9 years old. And she says, "Okay, tell him." He likes playing with matches. Tell him this story. Yeah. And as I'm telling him the story, he says, Oh, I saw that. My dad and I were down there. And she says, "Your dad didn't tell me that." So, for years afterwards, all the local performers up there and any place I was, I get a call or they come by and go, "Hey, listen, I was thinking about eating fire, but everybody tells me I need to talk to you about it first."
Did you ever see that little kid again?
No, not that I know of. No, he may be a famous fire eater right now. I don't know. I have no idea.
Either a fire eater or a firefighter, one of the two.
One of the two, yeah, or a pyrotech. Yeah.
All right, next headline. Mark shot his infant son out of a cannon during his 1990 tour.
Also true.
Okay, wait a minute.
It is. It's true.
So, okay, you got to tell me about that.
All right, what's the next question? Okay, I'll tell you about it. So Zach was, he was born in September of '89. Mm-hmm. So my wife and he and I went on the road that next summer. I decided to put him in the show somehow. So, and Susan, my wife, was helping me in the show at the time. So we decided that he could ride in a backpack during the show. Mm-hmm. That way we didn't have to worry about finding a babysitter or anybody, which is hard to do on the road anyway. And we didn't want to travel with an extra person because it's expensive. So while we're trying to figure out a trick to do with him, can he find the chosen card or something? I've been doing some things with animals in my show previous that I thought maybe I could adapt. And I was I don't know where it came from, but I decided to shoot him out of a cannon. So here's...
Wait,
okay, so
I'm sorry. This is funny. So you go from, well, maybe he can pick a card or something, or I have an idea. Let's shoot him out of a cannon.
My wife didn't react quite the same way you did. She had a little bit different reaction, but anyway. So here's what happened. I'd bring him out of the backpack at the end of the show, introduce him, and of course everybody goes, "Oh,
yeah."
As opposed to when he was a teenager, he was really cute back then. And adorable, very adorable. So I said, we've been training with him. He comes from a long line of daredevils and risk takers, and little Zach is no exception. And while I'm talking about that, we put a cape on him, and I hand his mother a little helmet, and she walks off stage to finish getting him ready. In the meantime, I take out a trash can that's been on the stage. I turn it around, and it's painted kind of, if you're familiar with the Beverly Hillbillies, it's kind of Jethro Bodine style paint job.
Oh yeah.
Jethro Bodine meets Evel Knievel. It was that kind of a paint job, red, white, and blue and everything. And then I took a big air pump and hooked it up to the bottom of the trash can. And then, of course, if you're shooting, normally you shoot something out of a can, use gunpowder, but we're shooting a baby out. So we're going to use what? Baby powder.
Baby powder.
Yeah. So this total clown bit, totally a clown bit, so sprinkle all this baby powder into the top of the trash can. And she brings him out, and he's got the helmet and the cape on. Now it's really a baby doll that's weighted and looks good and everything. And the first show we did, we knew it looked good, was believable, because when I shoved him down into the trash can, these old ladies in the front row went, "Oh, that's terrible." So we'd have a countdown. I'd hit the plunger, a puff of smoke comes out, and I grab a fishnet and run around the stage and catch him in the fishnet. But I actually just catch an empty diaper.
Oh.
So, and magicians out there, if you're familiar with the dove catching bit, it was rigged like that, kind of like the net for the dove catch.
Yeah.
Then she'd bring him out and shaking her head. And, it was a stupid, silly bit, but we got all kinds of press out of it. Nowadays, if you did that, the first thing that would happen is you'd be turned into DFS. But, we didn't have to worry about that. But yes, so it is true. My son, Zach, was shot out of a cannon when he was less than a year old.
That's so great.
And I only dropped him on his head once.
Wait, have you showed that video to him as an adult now?
Oh, unfortunately, there's no video of it.
Ah,
There's no video. Because that was, we didn't get a camera until after that. I think it was that Christmas we bought a camera. We got a video camera.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing his side of the story. Yeah, when I was 1 year old, because I'm sure he's heard the story a million times. All right, next headline. Here we go.
Yep.
Mark hasn't shaved since the beginning of the pandemic.
Also true.
Oh, is that true?
I had my last haircut at the end of January, and I haven't shaved since sometime in early March.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I tried to give myself a haircut. It was maybe about a month and a half in or 2 months in, and I was looking all shabby. And so I have an electric razor that shaves my face area.
Yeah.
And there's this little attachment that makes it like 2 or 3 inches long, just in case you have a long beard. So I'm thinking to myself, well, I'll do is I'll just put this little attachment on, and I'll cut my hair. It'll be 2 or 3 inches long, all the way around, and it'll be fine. So of course, as soon as I put it up to my head, that little attachment collapses, and I make a strip right down the center of, like a reverse mohawk, right down the center of my head. I'm like, look, I cut my own hair. Yay.
Mommy is so proud of me. Yeah.
It was awful. All right, enough about me.
I think those are stories that many of us have to tell now.
Now. All right, last headline. I'm sorry. All right, last headline. Mark thinks this interview will air long before the one that Erica Haynes did with him at last year's Ohio State Fair.
Absolutely. I even asked Eric, I said, so, John's doing this interview with me next week, and I have yet to hear your interview. What's up? He goes, well, been busy. It's like, you've been busy. We've had a pandemic, man. Come on. I mean, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have a feeling this is going to be, and it's really a shame because it'd be great to take his interview pre-COVID and this interview post-COVID and try and find the moments that match together, and they're different now, So.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Now, Eric Haynes, for anybody listening to this who doesn't know who he is.
Terrible guy, lousy act. He's just a jerk. He's really.
I was going to compliment him.
We're friends. That's why I said that. I love Eric.
Well, he's a one-man band, and he's terrific, no matter what Mark says.
Yeah, and he's got a really great Facebook group for fair entertainers. It's a neat place to go, and a lot of good information shared on that Facebook group.
And what is that called? Do you know?
It's fairs and fair entertainers. And there's actually some fair managers and fair employees on there too. It's still more leans heavy, I think, on the artist side, but it's interesting when someone will post something. Sometimes you'll see comments from people in the on the other side of the fence in the fair business, which is great. Nice. Well, there's a little plug for you, Eric.
That was fact. Or something John just made up.
We have one fan question. You want a fan question?
Sure.
Okay.
Wait. I have a fan. I have a fan.
You have
Really?
a fan, at least one.
Is it an act I've booked before?
No.
Oh, one I turned down?
I'm not sure. You're gonna have to tell me.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
All right. He's Graham Rogers, an amazing magician from He was actually originally from New Zealand, but he resides now in Arizona.
Oh, okay.
He says, or he asks, what's your advice to a person looking at entering fairs and festivals for the first time?
I would wait until this year is over.
Yeah, number one.
Maybe next year too. In all seriousness, here's the some of the keys. Number one, you have to get involved in the industry, and by that I mean you need to start going to the fair conventions. And I realize that this year coming up, we probably won't have a lot of them.
Yeah.
For the obvious reasons, but don't just go to the convention and get your trade show booth. Well, let me back up. Number one, get a booth. Don't buy a registration and walk around the convention with your brochures in your hand.
Mhm.
First of all, a lot of them don't allow that. And those of us who have paid good money and have been paying good money to be there don't appreciate it.
Mhm.
And then don't walk up to me when you're doing that and hit me up for work, because I will explain to you the error of your ways.
Yeah.
So do the conventions, be involved in the organizations, go to the educational sessions, and don't go to them to plug your show. Participate. You have valuable information to share with them. By doing that, you're going to make acquaintances. You're going to sell more gigs by not trying to sell them. They need to know you. It's a very close-knit group of people. And I don't mean closed as in we only book these things or these people. What I mean is they're not always the first. Don't always want to be the ones to take the first chance on somebody.
Yeah.
You'd have to be willing to put in 2 or 3 years at least. In trade show conventional wisdom, 3 to 5 years is what you have to give a trade show to get to determine whether it's worth doing or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only worth doing, once again, if you were involved in the organization. Volunteer. They need lots of volunteers. Working the door. I'll tell you what, John, working the door at a convention is the best way to meet people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And once again, you're not handing out business cards or doing tricks or anything. You're just there. It says, I'm here to participate and be part of your organization. So that's important. Have quality materials. They don't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a book and an hour-long video, but just something that is well designed and looks nice and tells the story properly. Not long, just brief description. And like I said before, here's the nuts and bolts of what I provide, and here's what I need from you. Those things go a long way. Do not tell the buyer or an agent, just anybody out there listening for any kind of market, don't start talking about how great you are. That is the biggest turnoff that you could ever do, because it's not yours to decide. It's up to your previous clients and the people that are watching you to determine how great you are or aren't. You have to be patient. It may be 2 or 3 years from the time you first meet somebody before they book you. Be patient. By the way, on the act thing, you need to have a great act.
Well, yeah, it all starts there, I would say.
It really does. It really does.
I know I could talk to you for like another 2 or 3 hours, I imagine. But.
Well, the only other stuff I have, I
ahead.
just made some notes. One is just general advice.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid magician, I was probably 13 or so. I saw a magic lecture by a guy named Irv Weiner. And he gave me the best bit of advice that I still pass on to, especially to young performers to this day. And that is, don't just focus on the magic. That at the time, that's all I was focused on. He says, learn everything about show business, basically anything else you can get your hands on, because you never know where your inspiration will come from or where your success will come from. To this day, I mean, it's paid off for me. Even though I'm not making much in the way of commissions this year, I'm working on 2 different recording projects with a local recording studio. One's a blues band and the other is a solo artist. But, I'm still busy making money. If I hadn't have branched out into other areas early on and still to this day, I would just be sitting there twiddling my thumbs.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark, for doing my show. This was awesome.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure. And I'd be happy to come on. There's 1,000 other subjects we can talk about. And
yeah, I have a feeling I'm going to have you on again here for something completely different. Not sure what yet, but you're fun. You're really fun to talk to.
Thanks. I think the next time we're going to talk about Eric Haynes some more.
Poor Eric. He's sitting in his living room going, "What did I do?"
You did nothing, Eric. That's why I'm talking about you.
Right, before I let you go, do you have any social media or anything else you want to promote?
It's triangletalent.com and Triangle Talent on Facebook. My buddy Steve Trash, his new book and course is great.
It is.
It's findingyourlightbulb.com. I cannot say enough about Steve. He and I have been friends for about 30 years, and I've been his fair agent for about the last decade. He knows what he talks about, and he's not just making this stuff up.
It's true.
It's not a get-rich-quick kind of thing. It's real advice from somebody who knows it. The other thing is I'm a big believer in audiobooks. Audible is my go-to source for that stuff, and they've just added the Great Courses series, which is a phenomenal audio series with their college-level courses with the print material on PDF. It's great stuff. There's all kinds of things about marketing and sales and economics and government, and I mean, you just name it. It's just all over the board. But
oh, that's nice. And when this whole thing's over, we'll be driving a lot more like we used to.
Fingers crossed. Yes. Yeah, I got to go now because speaking of that, I got to go start my my two road vehicles and move them around so the tires don't rot.
Yeah, I got to move my car to the other side of the street so I don't get a ticket. Well, thanks. That'll be it. And thanks to all my variety artists. Tell all your friends about the Variety Artist podcast.
Absolutely. It's great. I've been listening to several of them. It's really fabulous stuff.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
This one as well. Now go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.
That's all for this episode of The Variety Artist, but your journey continues on our website. Go to thevarietyartist.com for more strategies, insight, and resources, as well as show notes on today's guest to assist you in your career. We'll see you on the next episode of The Variety Artist. But until then, go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.